drops down too quickly toward the end. Makes it all pedal right. We'll see if it gets too hot.
Gotcha.
There we go.
That's right, yeah. I was listening. Trina, what do you want to do with the pictures?
Let's show the pictures first, and they can each tell about them.
Okay, and then that's the video.
And then the video.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for doing that, Pastor. Appreciate it.
You bet. Glad to do it.
Yeah, we want to do prayer first.
Yeah, let's do it right now.
Okay.
You guys ready to roll? All right. Can I have everyone's attention, please? We're going to start a little bit early. We've got a presentation this morning from our Calvary students. Some of you remember that they went to the March for Life in D.C. This has really kind of become a tradition for you each year, and so they were able to go. And so we want to show some pictures, have some of our students share a little bit, and then we want to share you kind of a special treat that we see as well. So here we go.
All right. First of all, I'll let them tell you what's going on here, and I'm going to step back, and then I'll close out. Go. You guys tell them what's going on in the pictures.
We are making posters.
Yeah, so we got there on Thursday evening, and that night was just spent in the hotel, and there were other youth, high school kids there and stuff, but we kind of took over the lobby, and they made posters for the next day for the march. We ended up with 21 kids and 10 adults that went on the trip, and we're doing it now every other year because we just found that trying to get funds to do it every year was getting kind of difficult. So it gives every student at least 2 opportunities to go if they want to. So.
This was the morning before the march. We got off the subway and we walked down to the White House.
We had a very interesting young man there. It was a politician.
He was a
Yeah,
politician.
that's what he claimed.
He claimed, yeah.
Nailed it.
So here, this is before we went, this was right after we left, or we were going to the mall, correct?
We're at the mall.
Yeah, so we were going around the mall, and there were some people handing stuff out. As you see, some of the signs, we didn't make those heart signs, believe it or not. Yeah, some people were handing out some really cool signs and stuff, and they had some other little trinkets and stuff. So yeah, we decided to put your picture there.
And Bo was very proud of this flag.
Yes, I was the flag bearer for this whole thing.
If you can't tell, we're all very bundled up, and it was absolutely freezing. We were that morning. We were actually supposed to walk around the mall, but it was so cold that we decided not to. So we just went into the
Museum of American History
Museum, and then right after that, we came out and heard the speakers that they had there. Well, what little we could hear. It was kind of disappointing because normally they have that big group and you can hear like all the speakers talk, but since we were so there's like the main crowd group and we were kind of off to the side, and so the people around us were like talking and not really paying attention, and we couldn't really hear the speakers, so we only got to hear like 2 speakers before we're like, we can't really hear them, and we just kind of went off and joined the Lutheran cluster.
Yeah, there were a couple of different groups there that we could have joined. As we fly on the plane there, I bet 90-some% of the plane were people going to the March for Life. And so they were visiting with different high school kids and stuff like that, or people from, but we've got the LCMS church who was marching all together, and then you have Lutherans for Life who are separate, and they're marching together as a group. So we had a couple different groups that we kind of had to choose from. You want to tell them about one of the speakers that probably had, that you could hear the most?
Yeah, so the one we just hear, it was a young lady, and during her high school career, she had while she was in high school, she got pregnant, and her boyfriend, she decided to like abort the baby, and then her boyfriend left her. And later on in life, well, she was like struggling with it and the whole thing, and she realized that she could have redemption even after having her abortion. And then later, her boyfriend came back and apologized to her for leaving and everything, and he ended up proposing, and they got married, and at their wedding, they had an extra candle for the baby that they lost.
They had 2 other kids there
Yeah.
with them, and they said, you know, that was kind of the redemption that came from all of it. So really, really cool speaker. So this is them as part of the big group. It was really difficult to keep our group together. It's not a fun time in the march, I have to say. I mean, would you all agree? It's really stressful because there's just so many people in there. But I think they all handled it really well.
It was worth it to be part of something that you know is helping make a change.
All right, you ready to show them?
So this last one is a video. While we were in the mall, they went to the Lincoln Memorial and they sang their common doxology. They sang the doxology in the Lincoln Memorial.
So see if you can hear this. We got to be quiet, but you can hear it.
So they were just here to tell you guys
thank you very much.
Thank you for your support.
Very good. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thanks to you. Thanks to the Bible class group for supporting them and letting them be a part of that, and how important that is to be able to see and go forward. So special welcome to those of you that are joining us online. Thank you for being here. You should have a Bible class sheet on our website as always. All of you should have sheets on your tables. Number 7 is on there, and so let's dive in as we talk more about vocation and continue to move forward on this. So this morning, I want to be able to maybe turn the corner a little bit for us this morning as we investigate why is it that Luther spent a fair amount of time in his middle to late years in his understanding of doctrine and the theology of the cross, in looking at this word, this understanding of vocation, because what we've lost a lot as Christians is this calling that we have to interact with our world, right? We tend to be, as people, this is just natural. We're going to show it a little bit in a couple different ways this morning. We naturally have our hands out as humans, not just as Christians, but as humans. We're often looking for the easier way is to just receive from this world. Just give me what I want. I'm hungry. I want to eat. Right? I'm cold. I want to be warm. I'm feeling unsafe. I want to feel comforted. And it's not natural to be able to serve someone. It doesn't come naturally to us. And so vocation is work, and that's not a pun. It's work to actually vocate. To be able to serve someone and to recognize that you are God's missionary to this world in the simplest way, as even as Paul talks about, even giving a cool glass of water. I guess it was Jesus said that. And just those simple acts of vocation. So I want us to understand, maybe we'll turn this corner a little bit this morning. So first of all, the question is, why do we work? We have talked about this, but I want to just make sure that we're clear on this. It's a gift to us, first of all, right? It gives us purpose. One of the things I love to see, when I was a teacher, and I was teaching high school, many of you know that, and my students periodically used to say, well, Mr. Gledhill, I don't know what I should do with my life. And I usually just tell them the same thing. Stay out of prison, don't drink too much, drive safely. They were just like, I don't know what I want to do. And I would often share with them, I said, listen, I didn't always know what I wanted to do. And when I look back at my adult life, I was a teacher for a time. I was in youth ministry for a time. I'm a pastor now. I may not continue. Who knows? But the fact is that your job as a Christian is to serve, right? Serve however God gave you to serve. And what I would tell these students and what I will tell you as our students here is do what God has given you to do. And you kind of like, well, I'm not sure what that is. Well, I got great news for you. Ask him. Right? He's the one that put you together the way he put you together. Great guy to ask, right? To be able to say, Lord, what have you given me to do? And it changes, I believe, throughout your life. There's some vocations that are delivered to you, right? You get married, you have a new vocation, right? It comes with marriage. You have kids, new vocations. Lots of vocations, actually, when you have kids, okay? You move into a neighborhood, vocation. Get a job, vocation, right? All of those things. So you do what is being done. Now, you can choose a vocation. You really can to some degree. You can choose to get married. You can sometimes choose to have children, right? Sometimes they surprise you. You can choose to have a job, choose to live in a certain space and neighborhood and stuff like that. But God's calling upon you to be his witness wherever you are is not a choice. It just comes with faith. But it's changed based on your vocations, right? I serve God as a pastor. Right? I serve God as a husband. I serve God as a dad. I serve God as a citizen of this country. I serve God. That's how God uses my various vocations. So it is a gift. Work is a gift to us. We should see it that way. When we celebrate Labor Day, right? That's really kind of the point of Labor Day. We celebrate labor. I always find it odd that we don't work. Right? I like to celebrate my job right now by not doing it. Okay, maybe that's a way to celebrate. That's, anyhow. It's also a gift from God to others. That's vocation. So our work is not only a gift to us because it gives us purpose. That's really what my teenagers, my students were asking me. When I leave high school, what do I do? What should I do with my life? Great big, every single graduation speech, more than likely you have ever heard, answers or attempts to answer that question. We're leaving these hallowed halls. Now what? Right? And now what is work? Go work. Right? It might not be something you get paid for, but go work. Do something. God has given you a purpose. Now, I have a certain bias, and it comes from God's word, so it's not really my bias. It's God's bias. Everything that we do should glorify God. That is not every job on the planet. There's a lot of things that people do that have nothing to do with glorifying God. A lot of glorifying self, right? So I just tell my students, well, what do you like to do? Well, I want to make a lot of money. And I'm like, well, let me try to change your mind a little bit. That's not the goal. If you happen to make a lot of resources and things, then praise be to God. Use that to glorify God. But if that's your goal, you're going to miss out on some things. What I want you to do is do what God has gifted you to do. Honor God by what you have done. The money and resources and position and popularity and prestige, those things are just side elements. In fact, not really all that important, unless they, help the cause of God. So those are the things that we have. So what I want you to understand is that our work, however, the risk can become an avenue for self-justification, right? Self-importance. Look at me. Look what I can do. Look what I have. Look how powerful I am. I remember once I was asked to open up the spring term at the House in Lansing, Michigan, to the House of Representatives. I was asked by our local representative to come in and begin the benediction with all of the politicians in the room, go in there and it was really cool because Kristen went with me and my son Noah, who was, I think, 7th grade, maybe 8th grade, something like that. So he was just blown away. But we got to go and sit in the office of our local representative, Eric Nesbitt, if I remember right. Yeah, Nesbitt. And he was from our local community representative. And we got to talk with him, have lunch with him, and so forth. And I got talking with him because he was a Christian. And I said, what's it like being a Christian and a politician? He said, near impossible. Yeah. And he joked about that, but he said there is such a drive as a politician. He's just speaking personally. I'm not saying all politicians. It's Eric Nesbitt's perception. He said is so many things are about self, right? As soon as you get elected, the first thing you start doing is campaigning for your next term. And I'm like, but that's because you believe you can do a great job, right? And he goes, that's what we tell ourselves, right? But really, I mean, we spend a lot of time, he said, in this building across the street that doesn't have a title and doesn't have a name. That's where we make phone calls. And we miss votes over here because we're campaigning for our party and doing these things. I'm like, ugh. But the point is, and I say that because that is a natural tendency of broken man. It's not unique to politicians. It's just one of my experiences. All of us can start to feel very justified by what we do. We just do this, right? You can do it when you got up this morning to come to church. You drove by people and your neighbors and they're sitting in their living rooms in their pajamas and you're like, huh, I'm going to church. There you are, right? You just right away just did this, okay? So the point is our work is never meant to be something that self-celebrates, right? That draws attention to us. I think everything that we do ought to always be turning the spotlight up to God. Everything we do. As a parent, as a citizen, as a teacher, as a worker, whatever we do, ought to point back to God as often as you possibly can. Everything, right? If you're a ditch digger or a politician or somewhere in between, it should all glorify God. So self-justification gets to be a problem. Now, that's not just a problem because it's evil, but it's not obviously in a ranking of things that this world would consider evil. It's not on the top 10. But there's a real problem when you and I believe we can justify ourselves. You realize that starts to erode your salvation. If you think in you, or I think that I can justify myself by the work that I do, right? That I think that, boy, I am a good person, right? Isaiah is pretty clear. All my good deeds are like filthy rags. Because, see, anytime you start to glorify yourself, breaking the first commandment, ignoring the need for grace, because you're like, I'm just really good at what I do. So, my point is, when you work, that's your vocation that God has called you to do. You could be serving God, and in the midst of that serving to the glory of God, could you get distracted and start celebrating yourself? It's the same work, but the focus changes, right? You start to go, I need to help my neighbor because I love them and God calls me to do that, but I'm a good person for doing this. See, just that little zig, right? Suddenly becomes self-justification. I'm still helping my neighbor. Right? In fact, they probably still receive it the same way. This is the importance of recognizing that God has called us in vocation to love our neighbors. Let me keep going. I'll make some sense out of this, I hope. Our neighbor is the telos. That's Greek for the end result, the goal, the purpose of my change in life that God is doing in me. That's a fancy word, sanctification, as the Holy Spirit alters us so that you want to serve God. There's a lot of people in this world that don't serve God. Agreed? Yeah, a lot of people don't serve God. They don't think about it. They don't care about it. Now, those that do, you have gone through or are going through a sense of transformation. I want to serve because Pastor Eric told me I need to. Right? No, I want to serve because God is clear that He has put me on this planet, given me certain gifts, given me faith, given me fruit through the Spirit to use. Right? I say this over and over to you guys. The fact that you are saved is wonderful. You can't get any more saved. Okay? If you believe that Jesus is your Lord and Savior, there isn't a gauge, like a gas gauge, like you're like, oh, I'm pretty saved right now, right? You are saved, so that means it's good. You have a stroke and die right now, not to be morbid, right? But you're going to heaven, okay? Because of your salvation, because of Christ. Now, if you're saved, then why are you still here? Work. God has a plan for you. He's gifted you and wired you in such a way. So we say, then I want to serve God in what I do. It may be in extreme ways, in radical ways, in ways that really bend your mind around a little bit. Things that you're like going, this is fine, just sitting in Bible class and going to church on Sunday morning for an hour. That's enough. And God goes, no, that's not anywhere close to what I hope that you will surrender to and submit to. All right, the work that he has for us is, I want you to glorify me everywhere, in everything. You ever try to tell a little toddler about that size that you're going to help them tie their shoes? What do they usually say to you? I'll do it myself. Okay? Now, this is not unique. This happens a lot as we do. We are not self-sufficient. This is important. Now, if you were in early service, you'll find that actually the sermon and this lesson kind of overlap, which is not surprising. The same guy wrote both of them, right? But they do line up. It wasn't really on purpose. It just kind of happened to be like that. The fact is that vocation, we often think about, what do I need to do for other people? Right? That's the drive of this class, right? We're like, vocation, God loving people through you. What about God loving you through people? You and I need to be receivers as well. I remember, this is back 2000, I think it was, 22 years ago. Chris and I are married like 8 years. We had 2 little ones, toddlers. And I had hurt my back, ruptured discs. I was laid up really in a lot of pain. And one of our kids was moving from a crib to a bed, I think. I'm looking to you. She's like going, I don't know. I don't even remember last week and all with you. But the point was we had to construct this bed. And from a crib to a bed, we're going through this transition. And one of the kids was getting into his own bed kind of thing. I think it was our oldest son. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit on the floor and work. I was just in pain and so forth. And our small group, we had a small group of young adults and kids and things. We got together for Bible study weekly. And they scheduled to come over and do this for me, right? I struggled with that, right? And I have all the traits of a testosterone-filled man. And pride was there. And they're like, we're going to come over and we'll even, shovel your driveway because it looks bad. So we're going to come over and do that. Please don't. And I don't want that. My wife's like, what are we going to do? Maybe it'll just assemble at night, miraculously, and so forth. The point is that we have to recognize you and I are not self-sufficient. We are called to be receivers. And here's why. And this is, your pastor needs to hear this just as much as many of you. Because letting someone serve you is good for them. And you got to let that happen, right? The whole point of having her learn to tie her own shoes is so you don't have to do that when they're 20. Right? They're like, hey, I got to go to work. Can you tie my shoe, please? Get the Velcro ones, man. We didn't have those when we were little. The point is that we want them to grow and develop as well. And yet what I often do is like, well, learn on somebody else. Right? I want to take care of my own business, okay? But if you think about it, you and I can't make it through a week without counting on somebody, right? I got to tell you, I have not grown my own food ever. When I go to the grocery store, I'm going in there because I'm depending on somebody. In fact, lots of people, okay? When I lie in bed at night and feel safe and so forth, I'm depending on people. I'm not out patrolling the neighborhood, right? I mean, the fact is you and I are not self-sufficient, and that factors in to our vocation. So here's what Luther is getting at. If my virtue is for the sake of my own virtue, okay, which means what I do, if you want to just kind of make a mark of, you pat yourself on the back of how good you are being, then you are using your neighbor. You're not loving them. You're using them, okay? One of the things that the scriptures talk about, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. Okay? We shouldn't celebrate what we do even to ourselves. Because what we do is we start to go, man, I am a good person. I've used this example many times. When you give your offering, now I know that we all give it when we come forward now. But remember the day when we used to pass the plate? Those metal plates up and down the aisles and things like that? What if you gave your tithe in nickels? Right? So we got to wait for you to finish pouring them in, making all that racket and so forth. You know what people are going to do? Turn around. And they're going to look and go, man, you're pouring a lot of nickels in there. You're great. You're obnoxious, but you're great. Okay? But see, that's what it is. It's about, I kind of want some credit for the work that I'm doing. Even though, we tell each other, we're like, we don't believe that works are important for our salvation. We don't believe that at all, right? And yet, we seem to kind of reach back there once in a while and give ourselves a pat on the back and go, I know I'm not saved, but I mean, let's be honest. I am doing a lot of good, right? I am doing certain things, and it does add to God's joy and my joy, and it adds to the joy of the people around me. But if I'm doing it for my sake, then I'm using my neighbor, which then again, you see how simple that little deviation from loving your neighbor is. Now they're just an object to your own virtue. You guys follow me? Okay? So I would love to tell you it's so easy, just love your neighbor. I'm telling you, even loving your neighbor has landmines, right? Love them. And you're like, good, love them. Boy, I'm loving them great. I'm doing a great job. I am wonderful for loving my neighbor. Boom. Right? Suddenly you're like, you're off. You're off. And yet God says, I want you to be cautious here. So let me keep going. Right? But because of Christ's grace, because Christ has done it all for us, we don't make ourselves holy. All right, so I'm telling you something that is true, but I'm also pointing out that which gets eroded if we go too far down this path of saying, boy, I'm really good. I'm virtuous for what I do. Right? If you celebrate, I'll say this. I'm guilty of this, so this will be okay. Right? We have a German Shepherd that we just got July, so a little over half a year. His name is Kodiak. And Kodiak is about 110 pounds and looks mean. He's not. He is a wimp, right? But when I walk him in the neighborhood, Chris and I walk him every morning along with all the other mountain goats in our neighborhood up and down hills. And as we walk him, there's people that sometimes see him come up and pet him or whatever. And we almost always say the same thing. This is virtue coming out in my own sin. Well, really, it's a beautiful dog. Where'd you get him? Oh, he's a rescue. You ever have people that tell you over and over again that their dog is a rescue? Right? Now, I know that that's just facts, but some people will say that enough to where it's virtuous. They're like, I saved him. I rescued this dog from certain destruction. I did. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little halo above me, right? Because it's a rescue. Now, I'm not saying that for people that have rescue. We have a rescue dog. But if that's the reason you're saying it, right, we're going, I did that. I rescued that dog. You know those bricks on my patio? I rescued those. They were in a construction site and so forth. I just rescued them, liberated them, right? So the point is what I'm telling you is if you focus on your virtue and what you've done and that somehow that is affecting your sanctification, do you realize that it starts to erode what Christ has done? If you and I don't love our neighbors according to God's design and grace and love that he has given us, you and I actually erode our salvation. It's a danger, right? Now, I know you would like, Pastor, can't we just have the simple message, the bumper sticker, love your neighbor? That'd be it. And yet I'm telling you, you even have to be careful of your heart when you love your neighbor, right? Because even your heart can get, and by the way, that's what Satan does. Satan doesn't just throw sludge on us of sin. He just perverts what God is already intending to do, right? I tell if my daughter were here, when she was in youth group with me back when we were in St. Louis, one of the more popular, you won't be surprised, subjects that we would talk about with high school youth was love, sex, and dating. Every year they'd love to talk about that series. You'd talk about dating and marriage and all those kind of things. And I would talk to them about how you look at a member of the opposite sex. And I said, everything about our culture right now is objectifying one another. Okay, looking at a person as an object, as an object of my own satisfaction. I said, here's what you do as a Christian. I said, you look at a member of the opposite sex, and you can do this now. You married folks can do this. With your spouse, certainly, but anyone. You can look at anyone, and you say this. What a beautiful creation of God. Because I don't think you have an easy time sinning if you say that. Because you're focusing on God, right? Now, it doesn't mean you should be looking at places and things that you shouldn't be looking and then using that as a justification. But my point is if you can look at another object, right, another person, not an object, another person, I misspeak. Look at another person and say, what a beautiful creation of God. You are honoring God in that. At least you're attempting to, even in your sinfulness, right? But we recognize if Christ has given us this grace and given us this love to share, we should be able to pass it on. Romans 6:18. Would somebody open that up, please? Romans 6:18. Somebody read it when you get it.
And having been set free from sin, you have become slaves to righteousness.
All right. You've been set free from sin. You're a slave to righteousness. So it's this play on words that Paul is using. So we are free from sin. Sin says, I'm going to do this for my own virtue. I'm going to use my neighbor to make myself look good, and so forth. When you recognize that Christ has forgiven you, His grace, His love, His regeneration that He is working in you, you are now free to love. Why? Because I don't have to love my neighbor. When I say have to, I mean the law. You are not going to be justified in the eyes of God based on how many neighbors you loved. Right? So the work in a Christian, okay, you and I are called and commanded to work. We are. The important aspect is, where does salvation fall in that equation? You are commanded. I am commanded to work. Do good works. Here's the importance. You're saved first, and the good works flow from that. You are not working so that it leads to salvation. You guys follow me? Salvation comes first. It's a gift. You don't do anything to receive it. But once you're saved, now Jesus says, now what do you want to do? What do you want to do now that heaven has been opened to you? Free gift. Do you want to love your neighbor? No, I don't think so. I mean, salvation in heaven is great and all, but right? That to me is, if you don't want to, you've missed salvation. You've missed what's being delivered to you. And so what do? You go back there, talk about that, right? That's why I was right now, the confirmation class across the way is listening to me teach. And I was telling them on the streaming video that I use to teach them right now, I tell them, I said, the catechism is laid out the way it is on purpose, okay? The 6 chief parts of our Lutheran faith starts with the commandments first. And there's a reason that the commandments are first. When you study the commandments and look and learn into those, you lean that God says, these are the commandments. You have to do these. And then you come to realize pretty quick, I can't. I do a really lousy job keeping these. And so what comes next, right? The Apostles' Creed, the announcement that God has entered into this world and has saved us, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. A lot of stuff about the Son in the creeds. You all know that. And then there's how we interact with Him, the Lord's Prayer, right? That is laid out on purpose so that we learn why I have to hang on to this grace. I've used this example many times before. Clint, I'm going to use you. You're the doctor that I can see. If Clint comes into the Bible class and says, Pastor Eric, good news, you're going to live. Hey, Clint, thanks. Kind of right in the middle of class. It seems kind of odd to say that, but thank you, I guess. That's an odd message, right? Even though it sounds like it's good news, I kind of go, I'm not sure what to do with that. What if what you didn't realize is I went and saw Clint earlier last week, discovered that I have something terminal, I have a month to live. Now when he comes and says, I have great news for you, you're going to live, does that make a difference? Yeah, because I knew I was dead, right? The law does that. The law kills us. We know that we're hopeless. We're condemned to hell. So now when the gospel comes, it changes things. He comes in and tells me that after I thought I was going to die, I'm doing cartwheels. It won't be pretty, right? But I'm doing cartwheels. Why? It just changes everything. I thought I was dead and gone and lost. And instead now life is delivered. Okay? That's why as we see this, we are free to love because we're doing cartwheels. Right? When you recognize God's grace. All right, let's keep going. This is a constant battle, by the way, for us, between death and resurrection. Putting to death our old self, our sinfulness. Do you know why I had somebody ask me this once. They said, why do we confess our sins every Sunday? And I said, because we don't do it every day here. We should. You should do it throughout the day. Right? You know, what's so egotistical about kind of going, you know, if I come to church maybe once a month, I mean, doesn't that cover my sins? I mean, how bad am I really sinning? I said, enough, right? The point is, why do we have communion on a regular basis? Why do we share the gospel? Why is the gospel delivered every time we come together? Why do we sing about it? Because we need the gospel to fill us, right? To redeem us, to wash us clean. Even though our Catholic brothers and sisters kind of see confession a little bit different than we do, it is necessary for them. They see it. We have to do this. You're right. Now, you're not doing it because it's a work. You're doing it because you're a sinner. Take care of that sin problem. Do you know why we baptize infants? And we don't just wait till you're like 14 or 20 or 30 or kind of someday later in the future. Because you are conceived, I am conceived in sin. And if baptism deals with the sin issue, why would we wait? I often have families come to me and they're kind of like, hey, we got a new baby, want to have him baptized, but we want to wait for Aunt Matilda to come. Right? And Aunt Matilda lives in Canada, and she's not going to be down here for another year and a half. Then I'd say, then let's baptize the baby this Sunday, and we'll celebrate when Aunt Matilda gets here. Because baptism is a conviction, a confirmation of what God is going to do in that act of grace. Because if it's just kind of an action, right, it doesn't really matter much, we don't understand grace, right, and what God is going to deliver through that. So that constant dying and resurrecting. So you and I, we die to self, and we recognize that God's gospel brings us to life. Kind of like I use with Clint, right? You tell me the bad news that I only have a month to live. That's death. But then the resurrection is like, great news for you. You're going to live. That's what Jesus does. Your sin is in the way. You get stuck serving people out of your own self-gratification and your own virtue. What I'm telling you, I want you to love your neighbor with me in mind. And that new self comes up. I'm sanctified. I'm changed. I'm transformed, and God can use me. Great example of that is baptism. Somebody, Romans 6, 3 and 4.
Do you not know that all of us who have been baptized into Christ Jesus were baptized into his death? We were buried before with him by baptism into death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, we too might walk in newness of life.
So here's what's happening in baptism, one of the sacraments, right? That we recognize that there is a death happening. We are participating in his death as Christ paid the price for sin. You and I, because of death, we pay the price. That's what death is. The wages of sin is. That's the reason it exists, right? And the reason that one day in heaven there will be no death, because there's no sin. God hasn't removed death. He removed sin. Sin has some consequences. One of them is death. And so in baptism, you and I are dead. I love the image that Luther has. Our old Adam, our original sin, old Adam, the first man who sins, right? Our old Adam is drowned. I love that, right? In fact, he says every day, remind yourself of your baptism, right? That old Adam, by the way, is pesky. Keeps popping up, right? In fact, I think he's a great swimmer, okay? Right? Because we drown him and we're like, good, my old sin is gone. God, thank you for your grace. And that new life, that new Genesis happens in me, that regeneration and so forth. And then I start to imagine things and think things. And I start to do this with my neighbor and be virtuous and self-gratification and so forth. And then you go, oops, there's the old Adam, rearing his ugly head, whispering in my ear, right? The old prince of lies, father of lies. And so in baptism, we wrestle with this. So think about the sign of the cross for a second. We do that. By the way, that's not something that's in the Bible. It's just a great symbol that we use, the sign of the cross upon the forehead and upon the heart to mark you as one redeemed. Some of you have heard this story. Some of you asked me about this. That one Catholic priest that changed a word in baptisms, and now they're going through and saying that so many of his baptisms and sacraments are null and void, essentially. If you haven't seen this story, it's disturbing. He said, we baptize you instead of I baptize you. And in the Catholic diocese where he is, they've said that now all of those things are, they're null and void, all the sacraments that he carried out and so forth. I don't want to get into that because that's not really relevant to what we're talking about, or even as Lutherans. But when we make that sign of the cross upon the forehead and upon the heart of someone who is being baptized, by the way, we all could baptize, correct? In an emergency, we know that we could do it because it's not valid because I do it, right? It's not even valid because you do it if you ever did it. It's valid because God promises it, right? That's where it comes from. That's where the power comes from. So when we think of the sign of the cross that we are placing on someone, by the way, you guys, someone asked me, I said this a couple weeks ago, I cross myself when I usually say the Trinitarian invocation, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Some of you do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not defending it. But there's a reason that we make the sign of a cross. It's not required, okay? But it's also not to be avoided. All right, let me explain why. In baptism, we are, through the sign of the cross, celebrating Christ's redemption. When I say I mark you with the cross, to mark you as one redeemed by Christ, saved by Christ. We recognize on the cross is where that took place. We're just reminding ourselves. It's probably why you wear a cross on a chain or have a cross on your wall or something like that. It's a reminder of what Christ has accomplished on that instrument of torture, right? But there is also a reminder that it's my cross. There is a cross that I am going to carry. I am not suggesting that I'm going to suffer like Christ. Not at all. When Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me, don't think for a second that your life is going to be like his. Couldn't be. You can't die for everyone's sins. However, he does say you are going to carry a burden in this life. When I told you in the very beginning, your loving of your neighbor, guess what? Is difficult. It does not come natural. It does come supernatural, which is God working in us, God loving people through you and through me. In John 15, would somebody just look that up? Actually, let's read it. We've got time. Would somebody read that, John 15, 18 to 25?
The world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will also keep yours. But all these things they will do to you on account of my name, because they do not know him who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have been guilty of sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin. Whoever hates me hates my Father also. If I had not done among them the works that no one else did, they would not be guilty of sin. But now they have seen and hated both me and my Father. But the word that is written in their law must be fulfilled. They hated me without a cause.
So what we hear, by the way, that would not be something we would necessarily write in a bulletin and say, we'd love for you to join our church. Here you go. Right? People that hate God also hate you. So please join us. Right? But it is true. Right? It is true that we are always going to be at odds with a broken and sinful, rebellious world. We always will. And yet you and I, we still want to be picked first for kickball. We still live in a world where we're like, I want to be liked. I want to be appreciated. I want to be, brought into the fold and so forth. And then somebody says, hey, I think marriage is this. And you go, well, that's contrary to what God says, but I really want to be liked and so forth. And so what do? We kind of step back from going, but this is what God says. In fact, he calls me to witness to it, to testify to it, to be that light in this world, not to privately. You and I are never to be undercover church. Never. Right? Just to be able to say, go, Lord, everyone around me is not believing and going in the wrong direction, but I'm with you. You and me. And he's like, why did I leave you there? Right? The whole point is you to be in the middle of this mess and be able to start to share and love people into an alignment with me. That's the call. That's why I've given you the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit shouldn't be sitting in your heart doing this. I'm ready. As soon as you want to go do something, I'm ready. I'm here. And you're just like, no, sit still. I'll let you know. Right? So, this idea of this is my spiritual battle. That cross that you and I are carrying is that battle constantly to die to self and to live again according to his grace. And it has everything to do with our vocation, because our vocation is the way that you and I interact with this world. It is not some grandiose, glorified purpose to where you and I get up every morning, we put on our Christian uniform, we pick out what our to-do list is, who I'm going to talk to and serve and love and so forth, and then I go out and execute. You're making it too high-end and important. It is just casual, living relationships. The people you come in contact with get God's glory. That's what you want. Now, do some things come across more importantly? I think there are times like that. When I come on Sunday mornings, by the way, I look forward to Sundays, right? And mostly because I'm a pastor, right? That I get to deliver the grace and love of Jesus through a message, through a class, sometimes through the internet, sometimes. And that I celebrate that. I love those times. But it's also the time when I drive home. And it's the time that I walk through a checkout line. and it's a time I have a casual conversation with a neighbor across the driveway. Those are all times for us to be carriers of God's love through our vocation, however He happens to use us. Now, the cross has new meaning in context of our vocation. Okay, I mentioned that every one of us, you can choose, by the way, your vocation. You cannot choose your cross. I'll use an example of moms. I saw this painting a few years ago. It's awesome. I'm sorry, it's a little graphic and so forth, but the flaming arrows of the evil one, Satan, always attacking us. But look at the role of a mom, right? Protecting that child. Child has no idea what's going on. He's ignorant. He's naive. But mom knows. Mom knows that my child is always under attack in some way. So what do? I protect and nurture. Now, I want you to understand, her vocation, she can't, in this setting, I don't believe you can pat yourself on your back. Right? Right here, you're suffering. Right? You're giving up. You're sacrificing. You ever, I'm not going to ask moms to share this because I know it's true, and I don't want to necessarily glorify motherhood, but I am going to celebrate you for a moment. Think of moms. Think of your moms here in this room. And again, I know we all have different experiences with our moms. Sometimes moms go without so that their kids have. It's sacrifice, right? That's hard. Sometimes they lose sleep. Well, they always lose sleep because of their kids, no matter what age they are. They sacrifice. They give of themselves. They lose. They give things up, right? For the sake of their children. They do this. And so this vocation, this is also her carrying the cross. Every vocation comes with a cross. You are going to suffer. You are going to die to self, what this world says is important. That's one of the things that irritates me so much in our world, when people badmouth motherhood, or fatherhood for that matter, and say, you ought to do your own thing and do your own way, and you don't have to stay a mom, and like that's diminished or something like that, and they just beat it down and so forth, and say, I want to rob you of the opportunity to love the next generation. That's actually how we solve the problems of this world, by the way. Christ's love to the next generation. It only takes one generation to drift away from God. It takes one generation to anchor you back to God. That's the solution, right? So, vocation is when we die to ourselves and live for others. Motherhood's a great example of that. These burdens, you're not going to buy this, these burdens as vocations, as parents, grandparents, as Christians, as churchgoers, these burdens are light. And you're like, Pastor, you have no idea what I'm dealing with. Some of you are right. But here's why they're light. Because we are co-workers with Christ. If the full weight of the burden of the attacks of the evil one were levied on you, it would destroy you. It would destroy me. That's how I know that these things are light. These burdens that we are bearing right now. The reason I know they're light or they're lighter is because Christ is with me. We are co-workers in these vocations. My role as a dad, I am not all by myself. Not only am I with my wife, but I am also with Christ helping me, guiding me, working in me, letting His light shine through me. And so if you feel a little extra burdened, let me encourage you. Ask the one that is co-working with you for His presence. It's not absent, but you might not be aware of where it is and how it's working in you. Crosses, I told you, are not chosen. If they were, there'd be avenues for self-justification. Right? If you got to choose a cross. Right? So what this is you telling people over and over again, well, this dog is a rescue. Right? Do you want some credit for that? Okay, look, I've done a really nice thing. I've rescued this animal, okay, or whatever. Or I have suffered for the sake of my children. Okay, it's okay to say that. In fact, you should be able to share that with brothers and sisters in the faith and them to encourage you and to appreciate you. If you say it over and over again, this is beyond just an announcement. This is now, I would like some credit. I would like some glory, right? My arm's sore from patting myself on the back. If you'd pat me on the back for a little while, that'd be nice. Okay? A cross is laid before every Christian in every vocation. A cross is laid before. So every vocation that you have. And the reason being is as Christ wants to let His love, His light, shine through you, He is intimately involved in your life. right, in that particular vocation. And so God is going to show you as you serve one another. I hope you realize that in the beginning of the class, that it is so easy for us to sin even in loving our neighbor. It's easy, right? You can start using your neighbor in this. I'm loaning him my lawnmower. Why? Well, if the truth be known, I'm a sweetheart of a guy. Okay? That you've used your neighbor. That isn't about loving your neighbor. That was all about you. In fact, you can loan it to anybody. You'd say the same thing, right? Why do I loan things? I'm a sweetheart of a guy. Okay? Instead of saying I loaned to him, why? He needed it. And that's what I should do. If somebody needs something, I should provide it. That's it. And I'm out of the spotlight. It's him. He is the telos. He is the goal of what I do in my vocation, not me. If it's me, I've got a sin problem. And so God says there's a cross that comes with every vocation so that you will see and understand. Ephesians 5:1. Somebody have that quickly?
Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children, walking in love as Christ loved us, and He gave Himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God.
Now I want to make a little distinction, thank you, Clint, about this. Imitation of Christ is not concerned with imitation at all. Right? And let me be extremely specific on what I'm talking about here. So you got two set of eyes you could be looking through. You can watch Christ as you read the Word, and you can watch Him through your eyes. And what you're going to do is see what He does. What does Christ do? Right? And you're like, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to mimic that. Or, and more appropriately, you're going to look through His eyes. What does Jesus see in His ministry? He sees people in need. And see, so for you, as an imitator of Christ, your focus is Jesus. Okay? You're looking, I'm going to do everything He does. What I want you to understand is you got to look a little further. Look at who He was looking at. What was Jesus' goal? His neighbor. Right? That was His goal. So He says, you want to be an imitator of me? Look at your neighbor. That's what my focus was. If you want to just do what Jesus did, you're not paying attention what His focus was. You're just going to go, let's see, He lifted His leg and His arm. He lifted His leg and that's what I'm going to do. And you're like, you're missing the point. I came here to love people. You want to imitate me? Love people. Don't just do what I did. Okay? Like we're like, I'm going to imitate Jesus. I'm going to go pray in Gethsemane. Good. Okay? That doesn't necessarily do much for the neighbor. Okay? I'm going to go walk on the water. Well, good luck with that, first of all. Right now, in this time, you probably could. It's hard. But the point is that don't think of imitation as just being Jesus to the world. The law sees imitation as good. Just do what Jesus did. Okay? That's imitation. That's the law. Follow those rules. The gospel, the neighbor is the focus. Why? Because the gospel is love. The law says, do this or else. Do this because I'm commanding it. And so we're just going, how do I do that? I had a young family. I've been coming to church for a couple weeks here and talked with them the other day. And what do I have to do to be a part of the church? Now, I know what they were asking. But that always just makes me bristle, right? I tell you, it makes my hair stand up on the back of my neck. But the point, thank you for laughing. The point is we kind of, what do I have to do? And right away we go, oh, nothing. There's nothing you have to do, right? If you're asking me, what do you have to surrender to? Then now we can have a conversation, right? Because the gift of God is a gift. It is not something you have to do. It's not as if God says, well, first of all, you got to travel here. Then you got to memorize this. And then you got to deliver this. Then you got to be this and for this long. And then I'll accept you, right? No, it's just do this. Put your hands up. Vocation is the ring. Right? The boxing ring, the wrestling ring, where the old man, the old Adam, and the new man, the new Adam, spar. Okay? Vocation is the place where we do that. Because in the vocation, that's where you're wrestling. Am I doing this to God's glory? Am I doing it to my glory? And there's this sparring match going on. My old self says, I want some credit. I want some glory. And God goes, I don't want you having any glory because it erodes grace. It erodes your salvation. Right? Satan wants to pull us out of our vocation. Satan wants to pull us out of our vocation. So he lies to us. He tells us that you can do your own thing, be your own way. But we have a gracious God and He pardons us in Romans 8:28. Somebody have that? Real quick.
And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him.
here's the amazing thing is, even in this messed up world, I said this last week, that God still uses us in this messy world. Right? Because you and I do not carry out our vocations perfectly. Not anywhere close. And yet he still does it. Right? So, order that God has laid out, God is a God of order, comes from God. Disorder comes from Satan. Satan would like disorder in this world because it counteracts God. Okay? I'm going to skip those two little circles that overlap. That was a story I was going to tell. Order comes from God. So, like, for example, capitalism. Let me just touch on this and then I'll tie a bow on it. Capitalism. Two things I think we could say about capitalism. I am not going to get an argument about what you think about it. I'm going to just say there's two things. One is capitalism involves a lot of greed, and it's also responsible for lifting people out of poverty. I think those are two very honest things an economist could say. So do you understand one of them is really bad and one of them is really good? And it's one thing. Okay? That's what vocations do in us. Pharmaceutical experimentation on animals. Okay? There's some very heinous things that have been done in the past to animals. But hundreds of thousands of lives have been saved as a result of it. A good and a bad. Now, are there other options for these things? Yes. I'm not getting an argument whether they're good and bad. But you understand that God can still do his work, his good, through messy, broken people like us. So don't think that, well, since I'm a mess, I shouldn't be, using my vocation to give glory to God because I am a mess. God goes, actually, I use exclusively messes in this world. Okay? Let's wrap it up. God still uses people who sin against vocation to love the world. Okay? Let me fill that in. And then the last one here. Resist Satan's attempts to pull you out of your vocation. And when he's successful, not if, when, trust God will still use you to accomplish his work. So even though I have cautioned you and told you be careful how you do it, don't resist it. Right? Don't back off and avoid it, but instead embrace it and see how God can use you. Let's close in a word of prayer. Good and gracious Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for your goodness. I thank you for how you've made each one of us. You have called each of us to be lights in this world, but Lord, most importantly, you have called us to be yours. And so we carry you, we proclaim you. Lord, I pray that not only do we love you, but because we are loved by you. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. God bless you guys. Have a good rest of the week.
Yeah.